Baruch Hashem. Today's Daf Yomi is the Daf Yomi we're recording for Shabbos Kodesh, and this is Avodah Zarah Nun Tes, Avodah Zarah 59, and the Daf is dedicated for a Shmir for the Chayalim Matzah for the Shvi Yemeni Yeshua for Am Yisrael. We're going to start on 59a, 6 lines from the top. Rav Chia bar Abba Ikla leGavla. Rav Chia bar Abba came to this place that was called Gavla, and he saw 3 things there, and he kept quiet about it. Chaza benos Yisrael. He saw the daughters of Israel, the mi'abra me'ovdei kochavim, shemalu v'lo tavlu. He saw that the daughters of Israel were becoming pregnant from idolaters who circumcised but did not immerse. Second thing he saw was chaza chamra demazgu ovdei kochavim mishasa Yisrael. He saw wine that idolaters had mixed up, and the Jews were still drinking from them, even though the idolaters had gotten involved with it, so it should be prohibited to drink. And the third thing was chaza tormusa deshalki. He saw beans that the idolaters cooked, va'achli Yisrael, and the Jews were eating them. He didn't say there was a problem of bishul aklam, food cooked by a Jew, food cooked by a non-Jew. Also coming to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan said, Amalei, he said, say, go tell them that their children are mamzerim. Their wine is prohibited because it's yain nesach. And their beans are prohibited because it's cooked by an idolater, mishum she'ena b'nei Torah. Not because it's really the case that it's bishul akram and you can't eat it, but because they're not Torah experts and therefore they'll get confused. Rashi says the reason is we learned that there were 3 reasons, there are 3 requirements for bishul akram. There are 3 reasons why it doesn't apply. One is if the food could be eaten raw, then it doesn't apply, and these beans are not eaten raw. But the other thing is it has to be oel shochem malachim, it has to go on the table of the king. And beans are clearly not meant for king's food, even though beans might be served on the table of the king. It's not something that a king that say, advertise, come to my table so I could serve you my special beans. And the third thing is it has to be entirely that even if the Jew gets involved a little bit, it's not bishul akam. That doesn't apply here. What about b'neim shel shem mamzerim? Their offspring that they're mamzerim. Rabbi Yochanan follows his position, which, by the way, is not how he paskin. Rabbi Yochanan says he's not a convert unless he circumcises and immerses. And since he didn't immerse, he's an idolater. And so therefore, now Rabbi Yochanan was of the position that an idolater who is with a Jewish girl, the offspring is a mamzer. And so therefore, that's Rabbi Yochanan's position. The gods are Yena Mishum Yain Nesach. Why did he decree that the wine was prohibited? Because it's Yain Nesach. Because of the concept which we discussed in yesterday's stuff, that you have to separate yourself from wine, even from the permitted. Val Turmasin, excuse me, and on the beans it's prohibited because it's bishul akim, Torah, because they're not knowledgeable in Torah. Torah, meaning to say that the only reason is because they're not b'nei Torah, sure, but if they would be knowledgeable, be permitted. Anything that's not even raw, it doesn't apply. And so therefore it should anyways be prohibited because it's not even raw. So the Gemara says, no, Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yochanan follows the Lashon that says, the Amar of Shmuel, anything that's not something that goes on the table of the kings to dip the bread in it, Ein bo mishum bishul of the chacham, doesn't apply. Gemara says, time of the b'nei Torah. It's the reason is because they're not b'nei Torah. B'nei Torah shari, but if they would be b'nei Torah, he would have allowed it because it's not all al shulchan lachem. Rav Kahana. He asked the question from Rav Kahana. Ovi kochavim ma'ut sheyoech anavim legat. An idolater, is he allowed to bring the grapes into the gat, to the vat? Is he allowed to bring the grapes to the pressing? So Rashi doesn't address this. Rashbam says, when they put the grapes into the baskets to bring them to press them, the grapes crush against each other, and the wine, the juice begins to flow out, and then they put it from there into the press. Can the non-Jew take it? Is that liquid that flows out of the grapes considered yayin nesach by touching it or not? And why do they ask this question? That which asks the question, can you bring it to the gat? Only by the way, it's not only a question whether or not you could put the grapes into the gat, that if there's wine there, it'll flow and it'll be prohibited. And if you put the grapes in the gat, it's prohibited. All the grapes in the gat. So it's all going to intermingle. Not only that case. So that's how Rashbam goes on to explain the question. The Re gives a different explanation. Anyway, we'll just stick with the Rashbam now. It's just the simplest one. But I want to say something about Bishul Akum, that the Rambam says that the main Gzera is something that maybe you're going to marry their daughters, and so that you shouldn't invite the non-Jew to a meal. And so therefore, it's not something you would dip your bread in. It shows it's not a ma'achol chashav. And only a ma'achol chashav is mishum bishul nacham. So basically, what does it mean? Oh, al shulchan nacham. It's not something that anything that goes on his table. It's something you would invite the nachri over for. And that's why it really shouldn't apply to beans or to rice either. Anyway, so back to our question. He says, can the idolater bring the grapes to the press to step on them? So they said, they said it's prohibited because you can't go near, you have to distance yourself. An idolater who brings the grapes to the press in baskets and in small pitchers in order to give them to the press of a Jew, even though the wine falls on the grapes when they're poured into the gat, it's permitted. There's no prohibition to bring the gat. Heavy commerce. You're talking about after he brought it. I'm saying can he do it? There was an esrog that fell into a barrel of wine. Idri obe kochavim. So an idolater jumped ahead the shakle. And he grabbed a hold of the esrog so it shouldn't fall down. Amar Rav Ashi mituli yadei. Grab a hold of his hand so he doesn't agitate the wine any further. And then do a shilchach when he brings his hand up, and then I'll make the wine prohibited to drink or even to have benefit. And also, bartsua adishaifa, pour out the wine so it's not over his hand, and so you're pouring out all that wine, and then take his hand out, and so he doesn't do agitation, it'll be permitted. Let's say there was an idolater who intentionally did agitation on the wine. Even though you can't sell it to a different idolater, you're allowed to get paid from that idolater. My timer, mikla kalya, because it's considered as though the guy burnt the Jew's wine. And therefore, he's not getting wine in exchange for yayin nesach, but he's getting money in exchange for his wine that the guy damaged. How do I know this? There's an idolater who did this nisuch on the wine of a Jew and not in front of an idolater, it's prohibited. They allow it for two reasons. One, you only do it in front of an idolatry. And two, you don't have the right to force my wine to be prohibited. So we see from here that the Jew can take the value of the wine from the guy, because he said, you had no right to ruin my wine. So there was a barrel of wine that its barza was removed. They used to put into a hole in the barrel a reed, and that's where the wine would pour forth. And then they would close it with a piece of wood so the wine doesn't spill out. And that's like a cork or a plug. That's called a barza. Some say that the barza is the actual reed. Anyway, that this broke, that it was removed, and the wine began to fall out. Also, the kachavim idrei anach yadei. So a guy came and put his hand on it. Amar Papa called to a hade barza chamra atzar. Either shari, anything that's right in front of the barza is prohibited, but the rest is permitted. Vikadami Amar Papa ada barza chamra atzar. He says all the wine that is above the hole is prohibited, because that would clearly have been falling out. V'idach shari, the rest is permitted. Amar Rav Yemar Ketanai. It's a machlokes Tanaim. Chavesh shenikva bein mipia bein mishuleh. A barrel that got a hole in it, whether it's from the mouth of the barrel or from the bottom, ubein mitzidei, or the side. V'nago bo tvul yom, and somebody who was a tvul yom touched it. Tmeya. Rabbi Yehuda Omer mipil mishuleh tmeya. From the lip and from the side, the tamei mitzidei tahora mikan v'kan. From each side of the hole. So Rav Papa's words were only said according to the position of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, we'll stop here. A big shekoyach.